Good morning, everybody. It is Writers Chat Tuesday. I am one of your co-hosts, Brandy Bowe. I am here with Melissa Stroh and Norma Poor, and more than one special guest today. And we're glad that you joined us. I'm going to turn everything over to Melissa, who is going to introduce our special guests. Melissa?
Welcome, everybody, to Writers Chat. We're so glad you're here. Today, we are having a special ACFW panel to introduce American Christian fiction writers to you. And we have special guests here representing the group that are going to chat with us about it and share what it's about. This is an open mic day, so you are welcome to stay on screen if you want to chat live and ask your questions live. There's going to be a chance throughout the whole day for that. And we have some questions we're going to pose too to help get the ball rolling. So this is going to be just a fun, casual writers chat today. If you don't want to come on screen, feel free to post your questions in the chat and we'll monitor that as well. So with that, I'm going to get the ball rolling by introducing our special guests for the panel today. Um, Very first, we have Bruce Judisch, the ACFW Zone Coordinator for local ACFW chapters. Bruce Judisch is a multiple published author in both fiction and nonfiction, originally from Canton, Ohio, and he and his wife Jeannie now call Hickory, North Carolina, home. Married 52 years, they're proud parents of 3, grandparents of 14, and great-grandparents of 1. Bruce also enjoys composing choral music, playing the 12-string guitar, and gold prospecting. And our second guest is Paula Peckham, president of ACFW DFW Ready Writers Chapter in Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex in Texas. And she's a fifth generation Texan. Paula Peckham has 3 novels. Her debut novel, Protected, Book 1 in the San Antonio series, was published in April 2022. Book 2, A Father's Gift, and Book 3, Accepted, finaled in the Selah contest. And her most recent is a contemporary romance titled Made for More. And she divides her time between Texas and Rio Bravo, Mexico. You can find her on Facebook, Instagram, and her blog. And she writes about real people with real life struggles. So, welcome, both of you. We're so glad you took the time to join us today. And with that, I guess I'll just jump right into our first question, which is, the most basic, really. Just curious, for those who are new to this and just now learning about ACFW for the first time, can you share a little bit with us about what it is and who can join? And I'll direct that first to Bruce and then Paulo, let you follow up.
Okay. Yeah, ACFW has actually been around for 25 years now. We're in our silver anniversary year. We started in 2000 as the American Christian Romance Writers, and then 4 years later expanded that to ACFW to take in a few more genres than just the romance writing. But we've been growing exponentially throughout the period of time. The name pretty much implies what we are, American Christian fiction writers. The only part of that that's a little misleading maybe is the American part. We are based, of course, here in America, but we do have an international zone as well. So we have members there in France, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Philippines, all over the place. So we are broader geographically than just American. But basically, we are in the business of advancing and helping Christian writers, primarily of fiction, to improve craft, to understand the industry, to support each other in fellowship and spiritual matters, and just being a close group that is able to really help out, I think, in whatever way is needed. Um, the um, the rubber really meets the road at the chapter level. We have 28 chapters right now across the United States, 2 more that are in the process of launching right now, and probably about 4 or 5 more that are in the wings. So we're growing very well. What I would like to do is kind of hand the baton off to Paula, because her being a chapter president, as she can tell you a little bit better of how that rubber meets the road.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, okay. So, as you might have kind of gathered by that, you join ACFW at the national level, but then you have the option to like zone in on your local chapters. And, not everybody has a local chapter that's really close. So if that is the case, you can pick the chapter that you want to join, and you can still be involved in a group. So many of us now meet via Zoom instead of in person. You know, we found out through COVID that we could do that. And, you know, a lot of people really want to have that personal face to face, but it's just so easy to get good speakers that aren't like right there where you are because we can use Zoom. So, we do ours as a hybrid, but some of the things you can do in your local groups, your chapters. Um, a lot of the chapters will have contests. They'll host contests, which is good to kind of hang a little award-winning thing at the end of your name and get some feedback from judges. Um, some of the chapters will have critique groups. If you don't have a critique group near you, you can join through that. Some of the chapters will do small, like 1 day or 2 day little mini conferences where, again, it can be either on Zoom or it can be in person where they bring in speakers and you can go. And it's not near as expensive as the big ones, you know, like ACFW has a big one and it is expensive, but it is worth it if you can scrape the funds together because you get some great networking done. Gives you an option to have an appointment where you can pitch to either an editor or to an agent, whichever you're trying to get to. And basically, oh my goodness, at the national level, we have a monthly meeting via Zoom where people speak on, you know, various topics about craft or marketing type things, whichever you need to hear. We have a book club that meets via really through email. And you know, so you're seeing what else is out there. You know, this might be a good comp title for you, but you also get to hear from, I mean, they're writers, but they're readers in that particular moment, and you get to hear what they respond to and, you know, the things that are important to them in the stories. So you're making sure like, oh, am I including that in mine? There's also, I just had another thing in my head, Bruce. What's something else we do? I was going to say that next and it left. The book club. They just started this last year and it's every other month. So it gives you time to read the books, but they will choose a craft book. And they're usually a pretty hefty one, like, you know, Susie May Warren's The Story Equation, or I'm trying to remember another one that, anyway, whatever they are, every other month they have a meeting where they talk and discuss like a book club. So just
Hello.
lots of different options to learn.
There are also e-loops that are available as well in different genres for critiques.
Yes.
Maybe that's what you're trying to remember, right? And that you can opt in on and share across the board questions and answers and help each other with things like research
Very.
questions or genre specific type information. And that's a 24/7 thing. So it's a good resource.
Yeah,
There's a
that's
lot there.
there is, yeah. Well, we just here in Wyoming just started a local zone group for the Rocky Mountain region, and so yeah, still trying to kind of learn a little bit about the zones. It's good to hear the different options available for them.
I noticed in the chat there was a mention of Pennsylvania, and just since I saw that pop up, I mentioned there was some interest bubbling up on new chapters. There's actually someone who's looking together to put something together in the Harrisburg area and over in the Pittsburgh area. So there may be an opportunity for someone who is in the in Pennsylvania area to be able to get something a little bit closer than maybe Ohio or Virginia.
Awesome. Brandy or Norma, did one of you have a question you wanted to pose?
Sure. What are the benefits and opportunities, excuse me, available to members of ACFW?
I think some of the benefits and opportunities we kind of mentioned. Those are the things that that ACFW offers. Being an ACFW a member does get you a member rate at the national conference and other options that they have. So if you're a member, then it's cheaper to go that way. There are all kinds of resources that are offered. I think one of the biggest benefits is kind of a non-tangible or an intangible thing to me. And I don't have a lot of experience with other Christian writing groups or regular writing groups that might be outside the CBA. But what I've noticed in ACFW is a real sense of community, if you will. In other words, everyone will bend over backward. Everyone that I have met, seen, talked to, coordinated with, or reached out to myself just bends over backwards to help you out. There's no sense of competition like, oh my, they're in my genre and they're going to take my readership away or anything like that. But they offer themselves up oftentimes for free to do speaking engagements to provide that help. So I love that environment. I love that the helper environment that that ACFW has, like I say, in a way of an intangible, and to be able to exert that then through some of the benefits and opportunities that that we've already talked about.
We did get a question
Yeah.
in the chat wondering about if there was a strong speculative fiction component. I can't remember. Did you say anything about maybe there are different branches for different genres in ACFW?
There are different, like we have Facebook pages, Facebook groups for different genres. And like I know there's romance, that's what I'm in. I see Betty Boswell's here. There's one for children's books. But I don't do speculative, so I am not sure if they have their own page. Betty might know that because she posts to a lot of different pages when she makes announcements. She could jump in and answer that maybe, but yeah,
Yes. On
there's
speculative, there's just about every kind of fiction. Pardon my hair, I just came running in, but all kinds of Facebooks that people can post on and ask questions, different things like that. There's a children that is not a chapter, but there's also a kidlit that is a chapter. And as a chapter, we do provide monthly workshops for the children's writers. So.
yeah, they are their own special little animal.
It seems like there's a whole lot of opportunity out there that I'm still trying to learn, and I've only been a member for a few years, so it's still kind of feel like I'm wetting my toes into it. I write historical fiction, so yeah, it's a huge group with so much going on for it.
I have a question.
Okay.
How does ACFW meet the craft and support needs of Christians who write predominantly for the general market and not the Christian market?
Well, from what I have experienced, it isn't so much that what we are learning how to do is specifically focused on Christian writing. It's just focused on good writing, skilled writing. If your story happens to be Christian, then, so be it. There is a statement of belief that you check when you join the national level, that basically, you believe in Jesus. Kind of I boiled that down. It was 2 paragraphs, I think, but as far as the actual learning and classes and, support, it's just writing.
Okay. Do you know if there are any specific things that are geared towards the Christians that write in the general market?
Well,
because it's kind of a unique branch of writing for the Christian, where
right.
we're not writing for Christians in particular. We're writing specifically more as a ministry to outreach to those that might not even give Jesus or God a moment of their time. And so there's a very specific niche there. And so I was just kind of wondering if ACFW has looked at that niche or has already something supporting the Christians that do write for that in particular, because it's kind of a tricky place to be, and they need a special kind of support to write those kinds of things. So I was wondering if that was available or anything
Yeah.
that you knew
I
of.
don't know if it is specifically like tailored to that.
Mhm.
I will tell you, one of my critique partners who is on the board at the national level, I mean, I think she was kind of joking about it, but she said one time, "Hey, as long in our," she's Black, she's like, in our romance books, as long as they go to church, it's a Christian novel." You know, I mean, like, so you don't, it can go from, you know, there's a salvation message in your story to just, it's a clean, fun story, and there's not going to be language, and there's not going to be gratuitous anything. You know, it's just going to be something you enjoy reading. So um, I think the publishers that I've met and talked with and read on their websites, as long as, I mean, they'll tell you things they don't want, but it doesn't, you're not required to preach Jesus in your story, as long as you aren't doing things we don't agree with, you know.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and that would be a really good track to have, like for a discussion on a loop, or even at a conference or something like that, to talk about people who are in the general market, rather than writing, and I'll invent some terms, rather than writing a Christian novel, writing a novel from a Christian worldview. And so it
Yep.
may not have an explicit salvation scene, prayer, whatever the case might be, but it is, as Paula said, it's clean. And it's written from a level that would support, or that would be well, commensurate with a Christian worldview and point of view. That's what I kind of tend to do. My novels are the same way. My goal is to entertain and to educate. I like to do historical, and if you do historical right, then there's some education in there. Otherwise, your research is horrible. But if you do it from a Christian worldview and a Christian perspective, then they're getting a clean novel, and they're getting something, perhaps an underlying tone as well, that is a little more subtle. Just my point of view on it.
Yep.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
I heard you all mention, excuse me, your conference a little bit ago. Can you tell us how your conference is different from others? From some of the others, like Blue Ridge or Right to Publish, or any of those? What are your thoughts?
I've been to, I consider big, the big ones, ACFW and Blue Ridge. Those are the only two big ones I've gone to. I've gone to some smaller ones as well, but they had a slightly different feel to them. But basically in both, you're going to get worship service. There's, both of them have a music group that leads us in song. It felt like there was a little more focus on that at Blue Ridge than at ACFW, but I think it was just the frequency that made me feel that way. You're going to get your different classes from both. You're going to have classes that talk about very specific things in writing, like, you know, how to show, not tell, how to get deeper characters, how to use subtext. I mean, just the smallest little niche thing. Or it could be something like, you know, how to get 1,000 followers on Instagram, you know, whatever. I mean, like the marketing end of things. Sometimes I've gone to a class where she taught us how to do our taxes as authors, you know, how to keep up with that, you know. So both of them offer that. At Blue Ridge, you are at, basically, to me, it feels like a church camp, and we do see kids there sometimes. So I feel like that's probably true. A lot of walking. It's in the mountains, so a lot of up and down. So you're going to work off those calories everywhere. And the rooms are nice. It's like you're sleeping in a hotel, you know. They have lots of open spaces in the buildings where you can gather in the evenings and play games or just chat, you know, whatever. People bring Tupperwares full of brownies and stuff. I learned that the first time. It's like, oh, I didn't come prepared with my offering, you know. At ACFW, it's going to be at a big hotel. They sign a contract for the conference for 2 years per place. The first year I went, it was in San Antonio, which was nice for me because I'd never heard of them, and I like made my reservation in August, and it was the first week of September, and I just drove down. But then after that, it was St. Louis, and now it's in New Orleans, and I think they're looking at options to do that a little differently next year, but I haven't heard yet what that might be. But you're in the hotel the whole time. Like you don't have to leave if you don't want to. You can eat there. You know, they've got their expensive places to eat, or you can go out in the town and do it. But there are enough things in the evening that you really only have like 1 or 2 meals where it isn't covered by what ACFW is already set up to provide to you. So, and that is included in the price. So, you know, you don't have that extra on top of it. When you're at Blue Ridge, you're eating cafeteria food, but I actually thought it was pretty good myself. I really didn't have much to complain about there. But you go through the line and they serve you, you know, from the big giant, you know, things of green beans and but it was pretty decent. I thought it was all right.
And where Blue Ridge Mountains is, where that conference is held, that actually is a Christian camp. A lot of Christian meetings happen there all year long. And their big thing is a big youth camp in the summertime. So that's why it has that camp feel. But you're right, it does, but it's great. Catherine, you had your hand up?
I did. I actually have 2 questions. One is related to what y'all are talking about, and the second one isn't because you know it's me. But the first one is I went to the website, and the conference schedule is for 2024.
Yeah, right now there you'll notice there's a little caveat at the very top that says standby for news on 2025. So they haven't updated that site yet for it still has this past year's conference information. But to a large extent, they do put the updated dates, but it's going to be at the same place. So if you were to go back and look at the hotel and those kinds of things, everything will be the same. It's just a matter of what is going to be offered in the way of workshops and that kind of thing.
Okay. My husband and I honeymooned in New Orleans, and it would be great to surprise him with that trip.
Yeah.
The second thing is I work with a local or with an organization that does tourism fiction. We host contests for tourism fiction, which just basically encourages people to visit locations in and around wherever. It makes the location a character. And I would love to get in touch with somebody about working with y'all to expand our reach, because we're very excited about this idea of getting folks actively involved in tourism through storytelling. So it's not a question, it's a statement.
Catherine, are you talking about like, if I were to go to England, I would go to where James Herriot, like see his little vet clinic? Is that what you're talking about?
Like that, yeah. Or if you Tom Sawyer, go up to the, you know, the caves up there and visit the caves. Just we try to highlight locations and connect with the local communities to promote not just the books and the authors, but the location at the same time. So we merge the marketing of tourism and fiction.
Interesting.
That sounds fun.
That's interesting.
So is this a story? Is this a story that would just interest someone in going there, or is there actually something embedded in the book or in the story that provides tourism ideas, opportunities, something? I guess I'm not sure.
We've had writers that do both. We started as a short story contest, and
Oh,
some
okay.
of us have expanded off the short stories. And we would go to a location like there's mounds in Alabama. Most people don't know there are mounds in Alabama, and so we featured the mounds, and your story had to include the mounds, and we announced the winner at one of their festivals. And it's just a way of cross promoting tourism fiction is what we call it. I dubbed it that. Yeah, I created a genre because I like to do stuff like that. I'm a wordsmith. I don't know about you people. And it to me, it is a perfect connection. And Bruce, you brought up historical fiction and being able to educate, and that for me is what tourism fiction does, is it educates people about an area so much that they have to go see it for themselves. And we've had people plant letterboxes or set geocaches in locations so that you can actually go in the book and you can go to the actual locations and connect with it there.
And I agree with that because, like in my author notes at the end, a trilogy I'm working on right now takes place in northwestern Maine, in the backwoods of the mountains there, at Rangeley is the name of it. Although I fictionalized the name of it, but what I do the actual sites, and you try to describe and you try to hype through the story, the location, because I think the location, the setting is hugely important. And so hopefully that would get somebody interested enough to say, hey, let's take a trip up there. Let's take a drive up there. I did, but one of my other settings was in Berlin, Germany, and it was pretty extensive on descriptions. But it was back when the Berlin Wall came down because I was there for that, and so I was able to provide stuff, and so you can still see vestiges of what I put in, but history has largely erased a lot of the things I wrote about. But still, yeah, I agree with you. It should. I think of biblical fiction as being fiction that should drive someone to scripture, and they want to go check that out. They want to go see the background behind what you've written. And I think of like historical fiction with definite settings, kind of the same way. That should drive you to want to go visit these places and see and interact with the feel of the history that place has. So, and being a travel bug, that's why I'm excited about what you just said. So I'll be quiet now.
Um, excuse me. It was mentioned in the chat that there is a virtual conference option with ACFW. Is that right? Could you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, I was just typing an answer on that one. It is, you do still pay, but it's not nearly as much. And of course, you don't have to pay for your driving or flying or whatever. And you can eat right there in your house instead of having to worry about whether they're going to have your vegan stuff or whatever. But yeah, they do the same thing. They put out kind of a request for speakers, and then you fill out a form that talks about the classes you can present, and then they choose from that. And I think it's like a weekend. I've never actually done that one because I try to go through the one in person, and I there's just only so much room in my brain for new stuff, so I usually leave that one to you know the time I might need to. But yeah, it's gonna have the same level of courses, the same level of expertise and experience. You just get to do it all from Zoom.
Sounds like a good option, especially for those who, might have trouble getting around and walking around. I know
Right.
uh,
Mhm.
not too long ago here, we went to San Antonio and did the river walk, and my knees were killing me for that one, but it was a great experience to be physically there. I know for those who have some limitations, that virtual option is really nice.
Yeah, I noticed that at Blue Ridge this last time I was there. There was a woman either on crutches or on one of those little scooters. I can't remember which, but I just remember thinking, oh, what a nightmare, because it is up and down. I mean, that one would not be good if you are at all immobile, because there's a bunch of stairs or really steep driveways. So it's hard for me to decide which one I like better. I really enjoy them both, and they both have good contests. The ACFW offers the, what's it called? For first beginnings, fresh beginnings, the first, anyway, it's like your first 5 pages.
First impressions.
Impressions.
Mhm.
Then you can do the Genesis, which you send in like your first 3 chapters with that one, but you can't be published for either of those. Once you become published, you can enter your book in what they call the Carol Award, and you just send in the whole book and it gets read. And so you get, you know, if it's the things that you submit online, you're going to get like the Genesis and the first impressions. Your judges can use the track changes in Word, and they'll give you comments and they'll tell you suggestions or, you know, what they think is good. And so it's good feedback. You get some really good feedback there. And then, of course, if you win or even final, you know, you get the little sticker to put on your book cover when you do get published. And, you know, it just gives a little bit of that validation to yourself that like, oh, somebody thought it was good. Yay. You know, we all need that little pat on the back to make sure we aren't just impressed with ourselves, you know, but the one at Blue Ridge is called the Selah Awards, and those are for published things. And then the unpublished one is called something else, and I can't remember the name of it now.
The
But
Foundation
yeah,
Awards.
there you go. Thank you. And they have lots of categories. So you know, you're not like dumping 9,000 people into 8 different slots. There's lots. In fact, they even at the Blue Ridge told us last year, this in May, theirs is always in May. ACFW is always like the first weekend of September. That they were splitting off romance into an Amish category because there were so many that were entered that were Amish that it just that's kind of its own little thing, you know. So anyway, yeah, so you got that. That's always fun. And they're not super duper expensive to enter either, you know. The Christie Award, that's like $175. Whew, you better be proud of that book before you send it in. Yeah.
Out of curiosity, with the Genesis, I know that's for unpublished authors, but or unpublished books. Is it just the books or the author themselves as far as the publishing?
The author.
Okay.
The author. Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, it was even, I think they changed this. Bruce, make sure I'm saying this right. If you had put like a short story into an anthology, because some of the chapters will do anthologies as well, just so you can say, I am a published author, you know, you've got your stuff out there. They, I think, took that back away, like that doesn't count as being published. So
Right.
you can still enter. Okay, good.
Okay.
Actually, I think what it was is in the Genesis, if you had an anthology, a short story in an anthology, by entering it in Genesis, that does not make you published. And so therefore you are not ineligible for that type of thing. But or maybe I'm mixing it up. I think Paul, I think actually you're right. I think on the Carol, the big change on the Carol Awards this year was the fact that you could be independently published. You don't have to be through a publisher, and it didn't
That was
require
big.
you. It took away a lot of the criteria for putting in, so that way opened up the options for people to submit for Carol.
Yeah, they had a thing called QIP, which I think stands for Qualified Independently Published, but it was high. Like you had to have like $4,000 or books. I can't remember now which, but it was like, whoo, I'm not there yet. So to be able to say, yes, I'm self-published, but my book is still good, they gave you this really high bar to meet, but they took that away. So that's good. Marketing is hard. We all know that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely one of the struggles for all authors.
Yes.
Or almost all authors. I suppose there are some of those super marketers out there. I don't know how that works for them because I'm not experienced in that area.
It's tough.
Are there different ways that members can become involved with ACFW beyond the basic membership?
Yes. And in fact, this is something I wanted to talk about to kind of recommend people. Um, oh my goodness, Catherine, 21,000 copies. That's a really good number. My goodness, stand up and take a bow.
Yeah.
And but you don't realize it. And I was new. It was my first novel, and I independently published it. And I was in the middle of all these traditionally published authors who were telling me I wasn't really an author because I wasn't traditionally published. And I started changing everything, and now I can't remember what I did.
Oh, it's like write it down. Yeah.
So
No, what I was gonna say before that little gem popped up, that was amazing. There are some different things you can do that you just volunteer your time. And so some of that is actually at the conference, and it's a good way to meet people. You can volunteer to be there at the desk when people are coming in and getting their badge and their little, bag of stuff, at the registration. You can be a greeter at the doors for the meals. You can be kind of the MC at somebody's class where you introduce them and you run the microphone around the room if people have questions, so that's all done at the conference. Um, here's a little hint for that. I mean, we all need help, right? And there's no shame in this. This is what I'm going to say anyway. If there is a person who you feel like is kind of in your wheelhouse, like their books would make a good comp title for your books, but they don't know you exist, volunteer to do their class, and then you get to meet them and make sure you talk to them so that you get that little, they'll remember you. And then later, if you need somebody to endorse your book, or if you need somebody to help you promote it, whatever, you can call on them and ask. They've all been at the beginning. They've all been there. They all know how hard this is. And hardly ever has anybody I've asked told me no. And if they did so because I'm in the middle of a deadline, I don't have time, that kind of a thing. So you can volunteer at the conference. You can volunteer to be what's called a contest coordinator. When they open up the contest for the first impressions and again for Genesis, each category has its own little person that when you upload, you go to the website, the acfw.com, the national one. You upload the papers that you need to upload, whether it's the first 5 or the first 3 chapters. And so the contest coordinator goes through and makes sure that you've followed the rules about it's double spaced, it's Times New Roman, it's full font. You go through and make sure all that's right. And if it's not, you send it back to them and you explain what they need to do differently. And then they send it back to you and then you send it on to be uploaded, to the contest. So you're doing that. And then at the end, when people get their feedback, not everybody does this, but some people will write thank you notes to their judges. They don't know who their judges are, and the judges don't know the names of the people that they're reading. It's all very anonymous. So hopefully, very objective, although we'll say that with a grain of salt. But regardless, you might get thank you notes to the coordinator, and then the coordinator turns around and sends it to the authors. And then if you are to the point where they feel like you have enough experience as an author that you could be helpful as a judge, you can sign up to be a judge for the contests. And that's a lot of fun. And you get to, read and make the comments and, all that good stuff. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Bruce volunteers as our zone coordinator. And, he's sending us out. All the presidents get an email when we have new people join. And, we get a membership list once a month so that we're making sure we're current. And there's just little jobs that everybody does. But the thing about it, you meet people. And I am in a critique group now that I wouldn't have been if I had not specifically met people in ACFW. I have 2 or 3 different people who I have approached about this most recent book I just finished to be a possible endorser. at all of them. I've met somehow through ACFW, and all of them said yes. So that's just they're waiting in case I need it. So you just, without that, you're just a little dot in a sea of dots of writers. But once you get in and start networking, and that sounds so businessy, but it's just, I mean, it is businessy, but people in a Christian thing, a Christian organization, like you would hope, I mean, I've never seen anything different, are there to support each other. And they will. So take advantage of that.
And beyond the making of business contacts, you're making friends. And that's what's really cool about it, is that like-minded friends and these relationships just go on and on and on. So yeah, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah,
And there are opportunities, by the way. We still need zone directors, so I'm just throwing out this little if anybody
knew you were
wants to
gonna
help
say
out and volunteer, that would just be wonderful. I would love that.
Yes. Yes, it is a problem. In fact, I know of 2 different chapters that closed because you can't be a president forever. You can't be the treasurer forever. They limit it to 4 years. Well, when your time rolls off, if nobody steps up, and it's the same thing at church, that 20% do 80%, you've seen it a million times. But it's like, well, if nobody's going to step up, then I guess we're done. And you just shut the doors, and that's a shame. And I know people are busy, but, so are we. And we do it. It's just a matter, there's enough for me. There's enough that I get back from it that it's worth my time. And I have made so many new friends and just people I know I can call on, that I would never have even known they existed if it wasn't for ACFW.
Yeah,
Years
me.
ago when I, excuse me, when I first started writing, I went to a ACFW chapter meeting, not too far from me, and was getting ready, did my second visit, and then I was going to join. But then they closed the chapter because nobody had stepped up to be president and vice president and all that, just like you said. So I didn't have anywhere to go after that. But it all worked out because God changed direction anyway, and he knew that. So, but it was, to me, it was sad. I was like, man, I went twice and now they're closed. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It was sad.
Yeah, it's easy for us. I mean, we're in the DFW area, and so there's a lot of people there. And so we stay pretty hefty. But the one that closed was off in East Texas, and they had like 8 members to start with, and then just nobody could swing it. So but that's where, if you don't have that, like I see someone saying there's nobody in Alabama, Catherine, there's not always a chapter in each state. But if there's not one close enough to you to say, like, you could reasonably drive, if they had an in-person meeting, you're free to choose another one. You can go, like, if you know somebody in another group and they invite you, or you're all welcome to come to ours. You can that can be your chapter if you don't have one there to use instead.
Yeah, that's one of the big advantages. There are 3 different ways that chapters meet. One is strictly in person. One is in person, but with an opportunity to remote in via Zoom or Google Meets or whatever. We call that hybrid. Or some chapters are strictly online. So if you do have that remoting in capability, the geography problem disappears. Other than the fact that it's just kind of nice to be there in person. And that's my feeling, is that I would love to be there in person. But if that's your opportunity, then you can become an associate member for like $5 instead of the regular chapter fees, and you can participate in the activities that they have. So geography becomes less important with the opportunity to Zoom and Google Meet and those things, but still something of a factor. And I saw the Alabama reference there. That's one of the chapters we're launching right now, is in Huntsville. So I don't know where you are in.
I'm in Huntsville.
Oh, are you? Okay. Well, you need to talk to Jenny Erlingson. I will put you in touch. Send me an email or however we make contact after this.
I sent you a direct, I dropped you a message, a
Yes.
direct message with my number and my email address.
Okay, and we'll get the chat record from this so I can recapture that if I don't have, okay, great, great. Yeah. Yeah, my daughter lives in Madison. So yeah. Yeah, it's been a really good response, and it's interesting. We talked about the officers. We had more officer volunteers when we did the initial fact-finding meeting than we had slots for. I mean, there were like 5 or 6 people that said, "Yeah, I'll help out. I'll be an officer," and that's huge. But it's also very unusual.
This area is growing so much, and there's so many creatives in this area. So it's good to know that there is going to be a presence, and I'm excited. See, it was kismet.
It was.
Well, do we have any other questions from the group or from the chat? I'm kind of trying to look back to see if I've missed any.
I think one
I
question.
will jump in.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
One person had asked a question about how do you know whether how the chapter meets. Just get in contact with me and I'll let you know, because I've got all those records. And also there is a chapters page on the national website that says where it is, what the name of it is, who the president is, what the contact information is. And in some cases it puts where and how they meet. So you may glean some information for that. But if you have any questions, zonecord@acfw.com is my email address, and I can put you in touch with any of the chapters or answer those types of questions.
Thank you.
I was also
I'll
just
put
going
that
to
in chat.
mention.
I'm sorry.
Good. I was just going to mention, Kathy Reuter had posted in the chat. This reminded me, thank you, Kathy, that there is also a thing with ACFW National called Fiction Finder, and you can list your books there. And it's a website, for finding books. They will send out an email on the loop once a month to remind you that if you have a new book being published, to make sure that you've given them your information about that so they can get it out there. I think they send out a email like new releases, and you can copy and paste that. It's like an HTML thing, but it's easy. You just copy and paste it to if you have a blog or a website yourself, and you can post that on your own so that it's, going out to whoever watches your stuff, that here's new books out for the month. So lots of ways to be supported.
Very cool.
Any way you guys would branch out into nonfiction anytime soon?
That question has been asked, and it is being entertained by National. Right now, it's a crawl, walk, run situation though, because we do have that big fiction letter in the name, and so that's our bent. But there are some other avenues that we're looking at possibly branching out into. One, and I don't think I'm premature in saying this. Don't quote me on it because it's just at the very rudimentary areas, but screenwriting. And looking into the Christian film industry and establishing some relationships there. That certainly fits the fiction aspect of it, unless you're doing documentaries. And so we're looking at that kind of possibility. Yeah, again, don't barrage questions to the board and say, I hear we're going to do screenwriting. Not yet. But these types of questions and the nonfiction thing is also in a discussion.
That's good to know.
That is a difference as well between Blue Ridge and ACFW. Blue Ridge, both of the times I've been there, there weren't a lot, I mean, when you look at the whole grand scheme of all the different titles you can choose from to go to for your classes, but they had screenwriting with people who work in the industry and like live in Hollywood, and so if that's what you're into, there was at least a little bit there to learn from.
Do you have anything coming up for 2025 that's, writers and members can look forward to? Anything in particular, or any specific goals you have for ACFW for 2025?
Well, 2025 being the 25th anniversary, there's a lot of work going on and a lot of discussions going on with the board right now on trying to, how do we solidify, particularly support to the chapters and provide better support. They went out with a survey just a month or so ago on conferences, and they polled every ACFW member and said, let us know what you want to do. What are some thoughts? What about this? What about that? What are your preferences? So I think that they're trying to kind of sit back and reevaluate at this point, where are we and what could we be doing better? The virtual conference coming up, of course, national conference, those are always big things to look forward to. As far as changes in direction, again, I know that that the board is being dynamic about this, and they're looking at possibilities, but it's a matter of being very careful going forward to manage expectations and to make sure that we're staying within guidelines of that we've established for ourselves. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's kind of a more to come sort of thing. And I know that the board, particularly with Joy Massenberg going on the board, she really is a spark plug on getting stuff done. And so she is my liaison, my point of contact between the chapters and the board. And she's doing a lot of, she was brought on particularly to help. Okay, how do we sort out our support to the chapters? How do we get stuff going for the members at that level? And I think I'm really excited about that.
One of the things that they started doing either last year or maybe the year before as well, I can't remember when it began, but because it is so hard to get people to say, I'll be the president. I mean, basically what a lot of us do, there's really three, but if you have, oh my goodness. Okay, some really strange noise just happened. I thought we had a bear, but anyway, so we had president, treasurer, secretary, and then if you do have a vice president. And so we just like rotate. Okay, I'll be here for 4 years. Okay, I'll be here for 4 years. Okay, I'll be here for 4 years. Like you can't get anybody to do. If you point blank ask somebody face to face, sometimes you can get them to join, but that doesn't always work either. However, one of the things that the ACFW National started doing was offering a scholarship to one person in your group. It could be your president if that's going, because not everybody can go, not everybody wants to go, whatever. But if the president isn't going, then you can offer it to one of your other officers. But at least it's kind of a little payback, a little prize for doing that work, So they're trying, they're doing what they can because they know how hard it is to get people to serve.
Just as a tag on that, Paula, there are actually 2 vouchers per chapter that are authorized rather than
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right.
So that's an incentive to serve on the board.
And it's just fun.
Are there any particular qualifications that people need to know about for serving on the board or getting involved in that way? Or
the only qualifications are you have to have been a member for 6 months of ACFW National, and hoping that you're gifted for it. But that's really the only stringent is that be on board for 6 months, because you got to figure out the space, you got to figure out the people and so forth before you dive into a leadership position. And that's true in a lot of churches. That's true. That's just good advice. But as far as there is a listing of responsibilities and so forth, or things that the president does. But as far as qualifications, it's a pretty short list.
Breathing.
Yeah.
That's always important.
Wanted to dive in and see it getting done and helping and so forth. If you have the drive to do that and you have the administrative and inclination and so forth, then yeah, it can be a ride.
Yeah. And like I said, I have gotten so much back from what time I've put into it. I definitely think it's worth it. I'm sorry, Betty, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I just started to say, if you want to be an officer, there's always a former officer who would be glad to help you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
Yep.
and by the way, if you look, the chapter manuals and the zone manual, which have been distributed to all of the chapters, have the qualifications and the job description for each of those positions. That's a good place to start. But if you've ever done a job interview or looked at a job at a company and you read the HR description, and there's a lot of boilerplate stuff and there's a lot of things in there, then if you actually ask somebody that's doing that job, say, well, yeah, we could, but actually this is what we do. And it's not that it's misleading, it's just that it's not a one size fits all, because not every single chapter looks like every other chapter. So they may not need to do some of the things that other chapters do. So there is some tailoring that can be done. And it's rarely as intimidating to serve on the position as what the formal job description might look like. So that's just the thing too, about maybe touching bases with someone that has performed that job, or maybe is performing it with another chapter, to get a realistic view.
Yeah. And with ours, like we have everything set up on a Google Drive, so it's all very organized and it's in folders and it has titles and you can find what you're looking for. And if I can't be there, then somebody else will do it. And we have a folder with general information, and one of those is all the passwords. So there's the login for Ticket Leap and the login for Canva and the login for Zoom and and so it's like, if I can't be there, someone else will and we just all kind of muddle it together and work. So, and like is Kathy still here? Yes, she's still here. She does most of our graphics, which is not, a title, although it should be like Superwoman graphic person. But, we just pitch in, and we do have enough people that we have that depth. And so it's easier for ours than it might be for other places. But, it's nothing super structured. We just work together.
Well, we're getting close to the top of the hour, but I did see one more question to throw out there real quick before we get to our closing. Patricia asked if there was any kind of incentives that we can offer to contest chairs. I don't know if that's something you know about.
I don't know. They when we are at the conference, the presidents get called into a room one night, like at 9 o'clock, and have a little meeting. And Bruce is there keeping us in line. And we talk about those things and ask, what could we do that would help, get people to do things. And it's just one of those things that, you have a limited pool of people to ask to do. And we just pray we get what we need, and ACFW isn't like a big profit machine. They make enough money to pay for the hotels and all that stuff, but it's not like they're banking things away. So it's all a give and take.
So maybe
Betty mentions that she says, by the way, once a month, virtual workshops from many workshops over the years are kept at acfw.com and can be accessed for free.
Absolutely.
So good to know. Thank you, Betty, for that. And it is the top of the hour. So we're going to ask everybody that's here, if you would please stay around for 10, 15 minutes or so for the after party. And we'll see everybody else next week. But before we go, Melissa, can you share a little bit about what is going on next week?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So next week, we're going to have Brenda Anderson and Sarah Davison come to join us to talk about on writing a series, Two Perspectives, and they're going to each share different aspects about what's involved in that, writing a series, the possible pitfalls or things you want to watch out for, and all the pluses too of approaching that, some of the things you might not expect. So they've got a lot of great stuff in store, and they're both going to be sharing during that time. And yeah, it's going to be fun. So if you've ever considered writing a series, or you do write series, I think that they have stuff for everybody at every stage of that. So yeah, definitely join us next week for the series writing. And Paula and Bruce, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.
so much great information, lots of things that even I don't know as a member. And so I think it was a kind of a fire hose there of stuff to take in. And I think that
Right.
would definitely encourage people to go onto the website and explore more and learn more. It sounds like there's a lot that you can give as well as get out of ACFW. So thank
So
you.
thank you. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for
Yeah,
asking.
appreciate it.
Thank
Well,
you. So we'll probably close the show for now. If you want to join us live on Tuesday, we would love to have you. Please join us on Facebook. Our Writers Chat members Facebook group is how you do that. So you can be here live we're here most Tuesdays at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. And if you want to replay this sometime in the future or any of our other episodes, please find our replays on YouTube on our new channel, Writers Chat Show. That's where you will find everything. And you can also access our replays from former years that were hosted on the Serious Writer YouTube channel. You'll find that on our channel as well. So thank you so much for this time together, Paula and Bruce. We just love that. And so we will say goodbye for now and stick around everybody else for the after party.
Thank you. Bye.